Hello and welcome to the Talk with Tariro. Today on the program, we are looking at the issue of COVID-19 and people with disability. So on the program, to help us address that particular issue, we have Gerald Hara. He is a person with disability, a young person with disability, but he's also a sign language interpreter. So I'm not sure through the program whether when he's talking, he's also going to be sign language interpreting for us. Gerald, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Tari, and it's nice to have you.
Thank you so much. I would want to know who Gerald is, your disability journey.
Okay, so Gerald is a young person. I'm now 30. So I have two disabilities, which are cerebral palsy and epilepsy. Generally, people with cerebral palsy normally have other conditions coupled on top. So epilepsy is a common second line effect of having cerebral palsy. So the journey has been tough. Let me start off by saying it's my heart bleeds when I look back, but now I'm smiling.
Yeah.
When I'm looking forward, but when you look back, you bleed sometimes. So when I was growing up, I had a lot of challenges, starting from acceptance from the family setup of who you are, and you don't grow up with parents sometimes, and then the bigger challenge was people having to cope up. Like I have a twin brother actually.
Okay.
So when you're growing up with a twin, you know the challenge of when you start school and then you're at the same school, and you know the end of term comes and your results come out. And there's this popular statement from parents like, can't you be like your twin brother, you know? And but by then, my condition at that time, I'm a bit slow.
Are
But
you?
but you wouldn't think that's what I am, because obviously the accent and the sign language kind of hides it. So you wouldn't think that's what I am. So I'm pretty slow. I don't do much of writing, which affected my schooling much. But I'm very good at pictorial memory. So if you now in the digital era, give me your iPad, I scroll through, I'm reading. Picture memory, it's up in the head. But you told me to write, I'm pretty slow. So the exam time, the class time, it would kind of affect how I would perform. But for myself, I'm a very unique young person. That's what I can say in summary.
Okay. So when you were facing the stigma, you know, from family, at school, and, you know, when you're at primary level, kids are still young, they're not sensitive. They can even laugh at you.
Yeah.
How did you cope?
It was tough, especially, remember I said I had a twin. So imagine my twin is walking faster. I walk slower because I had what is called hemiplegic CP. So my right side is weaker than the left side, and I kind of, let me use the term, I limp as I walk, like I drag the other leg. But right now you wouldn't pretty notice it much because much of the time you see me interpreting, so you wouldn't see me unless you see me walking. Then like, oh, okay, and then splayed eyes. So at school, people like, when I'm looking at you, you think I'm looking at another direction. So students would laugh in class, and it would be hard. And then walking slow to school. And my twin wouldn't want to do that. But thank God along the way he understood, and we kind of coped. But at a school setup, it was tough, you know, being laughed at, and I wouldn't do much school activities because of that. Like, for example, athletics. You want to run with others, but the issue of dragging your leg and they're telling you run 100 meters, and it was tough. So I ended up telling myself, why the hustle of doing what others are doing? Why not do my own thing altogether? So that's when I started to divert my pain to poetry at a young age.
I'm hoping you're going to give us a poem later on. And really, my question was, my next question was, how did you cope? So you've spoken about diverting into poetry. how did that assist you in coping? And besides poetry, how else did you cope?
Okay, the other way of coping was when you've got a condition, you quickly relate to others with the same condition. So I was in the mainstream class, but there were others who were in the special class. So I was more closer to them than the ones in the mainstream class, because I felt deep down, these are my friends, we are in the same group, though I was in the main line. So I understood them more, and they were more of my closer friends than the mainline class. And then as I went on, I remember one of my friends from the special class in codes was shifted to the main class into my class, and then we became best friends. So to me, I had him as a friend than the rest of the class. And then we talk. When people laugh at us, we actually told ourselves, let's laugh at them. Try to reiterate at them. And then it became sort of like therapeutic to me. And each time I get home, grab a piece of paper, though I'm still writing, I would write down my poem. After writing down my poem, I feel better. And I told myself, I'll keep pushing. And
and when did the sign language come in now?
All right. So that one is one of the I'll call it a game changer for me. Because when I finished A-level, being a public speaker, I was an orator, poet, and stuff. So many people alluded like, okay, he's going to go the low side. But no. So as God's way would have, I turned to sign language because I told myself, I want to do something unique, something that hasn't been done, because my twin is an accountant currently.
Yes.
My brother's an aviation officer. So I told myself, I want to do something different. That's when I enrolled with SUN, my Sign Language Academy, where I met Mr. Mapeta, Douglas Mapeta. And to me, he's like a father to me in the journey. And so sign language helped me to up my speed in terms of motor function, like the use of hands. Remember, the right side is weaker. So sign language helped me to be fast. So I know you've seen me interpreting, and you see me put up some speed, like, but how come? How do you do that? So sign language was the therapy part of doing it, and it has become one of my passion, and I'm enjoying it daily.
Okay, so after the break, we'll hear more from you in terms of COVID-19 and how young people with disability are coping. So just tell our viewers in sign language, join us after the break. Thank you very much. Welcome back. We are continuing with our discussion where I have Gerald Hara on the program talking about COVID-19, young people with disability. And in the first segment, we were understanding Gerald's journey as a young person with a disability. So when it comes to COVID-19, when it came into our country, what would you say are your concerns representing young people with disability?
Okay, so COVID-19 affected everyone. But in my own terminology, I would say us young people with disabilities, we were, would I say, hard hit more than, or would I say we had two slaps instead of one? So first of all, you're telling us to stay at home.
Yes.
And most of our conditions, like myself, epilepsy, you have medication, which you take. And in order to take that medication, you're supposed to produce a prescription that shows that you've got epilepsy, which it's kind of stigmatizing, whereby I have to go to a roadblock and then produce a letter to tell them that I have epilepsy. Many would rather want to keep it to myself. So it was hard on that part. And then secondly, accessing even the medication was even more difficult. And the other challenge was the stress of being told stay at home. Now, apparently stress is a trigger for people with epilepsy. So I can assure you, during COVID-19 time, then last year, till now, but now it's better, but last year especially, I think most of my friends with epilepsy, we were hard hit. We had more, maybe we had more seizures, but we were suffering alone in the homes. And you wouldn't get much assistance unless the family is supportive. And then there is the issue of the guidelines for
Yes.
COVID-19.
Yes.
Most of the guidelines, they are okay. You're talking of social distancing. But what if I've got a relative who uses a wheelchair? I need to be with them 24/7. Or let me even be diabolical, deaf and blind, whereby when I'm signing, I want you to notice. I'm going to show you just maybe the alphabet R, A, E, or U in British Sign Language. So this is R, A, E, O, U. Notice I'm using this hand and this hand. So when I'm talking to the person, this is my hand, this is the person's hand. There's contact. But what does the regulation say? Social and
distance.
physical distancing. So it doesn't work. When I'm talking to them, like we're talking right now, let's say I was interpreting for that person. It's physical. So I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
How many times was I supposed to sanitize
Yeah.
after using that?
Yes.
So that already is a challenge. And then those with visual impairment, they touch a lot of surfaces. And you're saying that don't touch surfaces. So to us, it was more like you are further segregating us.
But when it comes to protecting you from any infection, those are the protocols that should be observed.
Yes.
So how best can we address those when we are looking at the needs of people with disability?
It's really tough because yes, we want to adhere to the conditions, and we are, and I would say we're doing our level best. But the nature of the conditions sometimes kind of breaches the COVID-19 regulations. So some have been working with modalities to try to cope up. Like I remember the ones we did, Sunrise Sign Language Academy in partnership with National AIDS Council, we came up with what we called user-friendly masks. Because we noticed the first mask, when you put it on, it covers your face and your mouth. For the deaf now, some rely on lip reading. So we need to have a transparent part around the mouth so that when we are communicating, the deaf can see. It becomes better. So it's more of innovative approaches. Some, I remember meeting some friend of mine, his wheelchair it was modified, and then the sanitizer was put next to the wheelchair. So each time he's using his wheelchair, up to some distances, presses the sanitizer, rubs his hands, continues the journey. So those are innovative approaches which came along, which is a good plus for them. But in terms of the challenges of them, especially on the medication side and community rehabilitation, I must say that was really affected.
And when we are looking at the vaccination now, as a country, we are rolling out the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah.
How has this been accepted by people with disability?
Well, like everyone, we were first affected by the social media hoaxes about the vaccine.
Yes.
So everyone, we went into a panic mode. Whereby we're like, okay, if I take the vaccine, I'm going to die. It's going to alter my DNA, which is not true. I myself, I must confess, at first I was scared. But then by that time, I was a frontline worker because I was interpreting about COVID-19 for the National AIDS Council. So I had no option. I had to go. But first of all, I had to have a consultation with my medical practitioner to say, is it safe? Let me shock you. Did you know when the vaccine came, there was a circular which said young people or people with uncontrolled epilepsy should not take the vaccine.
Yes.
And that sent a lot of panic around the epilepsy family around them and beyond. So then I was saying, so I'm not supposed to be vaccinated?
Yes.
What am I supposed to do? Then I went to my doctor, does some consultations, some tests. And said, like, you know what? You can go and get vaccinated. No challenges. You should not be afraid. And then that's when I went for the vaccination.
Yes.
The first jab, second jab, and I'm here right now, no side effects. I'm doing the work that I love the most, interpreting advocacy to people with disabilities in communities. So I think to people with disabilities, young and old, I would say, let's go and take the vaccine. The major goal is protecting yourself and protecting others, and that would help.
So what I would want is for Gerald really to give us some poetry. He said he's a poet, so we wouldn't leave this segment without a poem from Gerald.
Okay, to make it interesting, I want you to think of any topic of your head. Once you say the topic, I'll start my poem.
It has to be linked to COVID-19.
All right. COVID-19. This cloud, it came, swept across the whole world. And right now, the turmoil is tough and rough. And by the way, COVID has got a new friend. It's called death. So if you're closer to COVID, be sure the next friend is you're going to die. But I got good news. We've got protective measures for you and me to run away from COVID. What are these? Let's mask up. Let's sanitize. Social distancing. Remember, let's also be social distant from fake news, from untrusted sources. Remember also to mask up. Why mask up? Mask up to protect yourself and others. And remember, let's vaccinate. Why vaccination? So that I protect myself and I protect others, so that we have hope, because my sister's name is Tariro. We've got hope. We will conquer COVID-19.
Join us after the break. Welcome back. We continue with our discussion where we are looking at COVID-19 and people with disability. First two segments, we had Gerald, where we're really looking at young people with disability. Now on the show, I'm joined by Mr. Douglas Mapeta. He is the founder and chair of Sunrise Sign Language Academy. Welcome to the Talk with Tariro.
Thank you.
Yes. Would want to know, when it comes to issues of sign language, young people with disability, so those are the hearing impaired, is that the correct terminology?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
How have they been impacted by COVID-19?
It was a menace, to say the least. Why? Because on advertising, adverts were meant for people who were hearing, and the deaf were left in the cold. And that's when now we saw the gap.
Yeah.
And I wrote to Minister of Health and say, what best can we come up with to help out? It was a challenge because everyone was in a panic mode. What they could do to their people. And I mean, it was just out of this world, to say the least.
Yeah.
That's when the communication director of NAC phoned us and say, Mapeta, can we meet and come up with something?
Yeah.
That's when now we volunteered and said, here we are, and bridge this gap as far as interpretation into the COVID messages is concerned, which were flighted, sponsored by NAC to the deaf community. That's when now at least the deaf managed to get the information through interpretation. But also another issue is how many deaf people have these televisions? Some they stay in rural areas.
Exactly.
Some stay in areas where there is no even electricity.
Yes.
And also the deaf don't own even a TV set. It becomes a challenge again. Yeah.
So how do we address that? How would you propose that that should be addressed? Because definitely messaging, yes, a little bit of effort has been done, but the majority are not accessing. And we do know with COVID-19 now, there's a lot of information that we're supposed to be disseminating. How should we address that as a country?
Now, there must be a lot of collaborations, rural areas, right, where people who know the language and go out to people and even making posters where they cannot access the internet. They can see, because visual is about visual, you know. So they can access through seeing where it is written COVID and where it is signed. We are there to change the narrative. And we are there for the nation. Who are we not to be used to impart that knowledge and all those people, especially in the rural areas? In town, at least, people can communicate easily. But in the rural areas, there is need for us to have a collaborative approach and reach out to those people.
And when it comes to the issue of the vaccination, where the whole country, we are being lobbied, we are rolling out vaccination. How are people with disability taking this?
No, I'm sorry to say there is no information, proper information, which is being disseminated to this group or to you and me. Why? False news or fake news, they outrun the truth.
Exactly.
So in the deaf community, whatever they see, they take as truth because no one is explaining to them, this is fake, this is truth. So the fake news, like what I said, they outrun the true news. Now to say, come and be vaccinated, and yet the fake news was saying, you are going to be wiped. The rest of the people is coming to wipe the Africa. And for them to understand it, it takes ages. But we were vaccinated, or I was vaccinated as a frontliner because we are interpreting for the COVID.
Yeah.
Why I have to do that? For them to believe that this is workable and it's truth for you to be protected so that there's no going to be COVID. So
Is that sign language that you...
COVID, yes, this is COVID.
This is COVID,
Yes.
okay.
There's no spreading of what? Of COVID.
Yeah.
So I think there is need for the stakeholders, like ZBC and other stakeholders, to call the deaf, right, and come up with skits. So when a deaf person seeing them being vaccinated, this is going to spread, and the deaf themselves, they are going to accept and be vaccinated, thereby protecting themselves. Yes.
Okay, and when we are looking at this part, the grouping, I'm looking at the visually impaired, where they need information in Braille. Any information that is available pertaining to COVID-19?
And not to my understanding, I don't think there is any messages in Braille. Hence, I've said there must be a lot of collaboration between stakeholders. Funds must be availed for everyone, so that this should be in a reach to everyone. Yes.
And what would you say is your message to Zimbabweans? I do know you have spoken about the issue of collaboration, challenged even the national broadcasters, ABC, to say, let's see skits on television, and for the visually impaired, maybe dramas on radio,
Yes.
which are speaking to all these issues. What would you then say is your call to action to Zimbabweans?
To all Zimbabweans, we should be vaccinated no matter what. I was vaccinated, so you can be. Yes.
And to people with disability, here I would want you to communicate to us using audio as well as sign language, really encouraging them not to listen to fake information, because we do know fake information is spreading rapidly, and encouraging them to go for vaccination as well.
You and me can be vaccinated, right? So that we defend ourselves from this disease. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. That's all we had for you on this program, where we're looking at the impact of COVID-19 on people with disability. Until we meet again next week, it's goodbye.